What was your first perception of love?
So when I look back to my childhood, it was violent. So I would see my dad fighting my mother, and she would, I saw her loving him and saying how much she loved him and also how much he loved her. So
Yeah.
both of them were very expressive about that. And I remember her making dinner for him and putting it on the table, and he would throw the food. And what that said to me was love was dangerous, it was violent, it was painful. And if you were to fall in love, you wouldn't have your sensibilities about you enough to leave. Because when my dad was, I would say, beating my mother up, I just wonder, why don't you leave him? And
Yeah.
she would say to me, I love him.
You are now tuned in.
You are now tuned in to Let's Talk About Healing.
I recognize that I wanted to come out of that deep, dark place I was in.
Like the story that we are repeating over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
We can change it.
Yeah.
I went in with an open mind, an open heart, and I said, you know what? I'm willing to learn the truth about all of this because I don't understand.
Now here's your host, Yvonne Pierre.
Hello and welcome to Let's Talk About Healing, where I have interesting conversations with various guests on a variety of topics on healing the mind, body, and spirit. I'm your host, Yvonne Pierre, and today I'm looking forward to this conversation with my guest, Robin Allen, a mom, nutritionist, entrepreneur, the founder of Necessary Nutrition Inc., and the creator for Necessary Nutrition brand of vitamin D3. She has been featured on CNN headline news and countless other media outlets sharing her insight on food, nutrition, and life. Now, we're going to talk about nutrition in a different episode, but I wanted to have this conversation with her on Running from Love because when we spoke, we had a really good conversation about love, and I thought this would be appropriate for an episode in regards to healing. So, specifically, we're going to talk about running from love, something that her and I both had to overcome. Robin Allen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk about this because most of the time I am talking about food and nutrition, and talking about running from love and healing is timely, especially since I am getting married next week.
Yes, congratulations.
You're welcome. And what it took to get here. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's jump in. What was your first perception of love?
So when I look back to my childhood, it was violent. So I would see my dad fighting my mother, and she would, I saw her loving him and saying how much she loved him and also how much he loved her. So
Yeah.
both of them were very expressive about that. And I remember her making dinner for him and putting it on the table, and he would throw the food. And what that said to me was love was dangerous, it was violent, it was painful. And if you were to fall in love, you wouldn't have your sensibilities about you enough to leave. Because when my dad was, I would say, beating my mother up, I just wonder, why don't you leave him? And
Yeah.
she would say to me, I love him. And I thought, okay, that doesn't work for me. And from that moment on, I just had an idea of what love was and what love was not, and what I wasn't going to participate
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, pretty much my introduction to love was toxic as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
And, even though my father was murdered when I was a year and a half, so that perspective from a child meant that being in love meant losing. And I was
Wow.
so afraid of loving someone and losing them.
Okay.
So it became I what do they call it? It's a term. I had a fear of losing people that I love, whether it's losing them from their lives being lost, or them walking away, or breakup, or divorce, or whatever. And the other images of love that I saw were also toxic around me. Now,
Same.
I would see some what appeared to be healthy relationships, but it
Hmm.
wasn't common.
Yeah.
And because of that, as a child growing up, my perception of love was that it's toxic.
Yeah. I never saw any healthy relationships. And love just meant pain. Love
Yeah.
meant pain. And also, even when after my father and my mother, I would just see other relationships along the way, and they were all very painful. Even some of my girlfriends, when I was in college, they would have breakups and they would go into a depression. One of them dropped out of school. So I kept seeing relationships that were just detrimental. And
Yeah.
I really, really, at my core, believe that if I were to fall in love, well, that I actually was not. I wasn't looking for love because I thought, okay, yeah, I won't be able to progress in life and finish my schooling. And that led to a series of relationships that didn't allow me to be my true self. And I met people and that just allowed me to stay surface with them because I was serious about guarding my heart.
Yeah.
I never wanted to be married ever.
Yeah. Same here.
Yeah, I never wanted to be married, which is interesting because like how am I now getting married? And I want to make this point. I'm 48 years old, so I've carried this from my childhood until now,
Yeah.
and it took me a lot to get here.
Yeah. Yeah, same here. I had abandonment issues.
Yeah.
Um, and that was the word I was searching for. I had serious abandonment issues, and, and not just a relationship with a man, but friendships too.
Friendships.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so want to dive more into that
Okay.
later, but right now I want to, and I think we kind of already touched on what we were afraid of and
Yes.
what we were running from.
Yes. And
Um,
ultimately it was that pain, that disappointment, that loss we were running from. And when you said that, it made me realize what I was running from. I was running from my emotions, my feelings.
mm,
Yeah. And when you
yeah,
do that, when you are not allowing yourself to be fully expressed, it really does put a damper on the life that you can live, and you're not living in your authenticity and your fullness and what you were created to be. I've learned that now.
yeah, yeah. So because of that, how did it affect relationships around you? Whether it was dating or
Mhm.
friendships or family, how did it affect how you related
Mhm.
to other people?
So when it came to, I have a very small circle of friends.
Mhm.
So when it came to non-romantic relationships, I was okay because I didn't have any damage about those. But when it
Mm,
came to dating, what I thought honestly was that I had to be very distant with that person. Let me say this, and I'm being really, really honest
mhm.
with So it was with a in a heterosexual relationship, I thought, okay, then it's just about sex. That's it.
Right.
There's no
Yeah.
feelings, there's no
Yeah.
emotion. So we can have relations and I can just walk away.
Yeah.
And what happened was that was interestingly enough, the more that I behaved that way to people that I was dating, the more they, I would say, chased me. So then I had this sense of control. I thought, oh my gosh, I can control them. I would do things like, and I'm talking about in my early 20s and teens or
Yeah.
college years. So let's say I would have, I will say it, relations with someone and I may not call them.
Yeah.
I may just tell them to leave. And that made them come after me more. And then I thought, then it became this game that I learned to play. I was hurting other people
Yeah.
and not letting them hurt me, but I was the bad one.
Yeah. But you
I was
know what? I
mhm,
think that was your way, and from my experience, that
mhm.
was my way of protecting myself.
Correct. Exactly
Yeah.
that. I'm like, you can't break my heart because I'm gonna break your heart.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, so that's how I moved through relationships for the majority of my life was with a closed heart, not being vulnerable, not sharing any parts of myself other than the parts that I felt they couldn't really get to. When it comes to sex, if I can mention this,
Yeah.
sex is such an intimate act, but
Yeah.
I took away the intimacy within my own mind. I was very, very disconnected.
Mm.
So, yeah, I could
Yeah.
be with someone and have no feelings about them,
Yeah.
no thoughts about them.
Yeah.
And that's not healthy, I don't think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, as far as friendships and family, my introduction to love in that regard was toxic too.
Hmm.
And so it made me very cautious to the point where if I saw you dogging out other friends to
Hmm.
me, I
Hmm.
distanced myself because I knew that if you were talking about them, you're probably talking about me too. So
Got
I
it.
became very, very cautious when it came to friendships because, again, that fear of abandonment, that fear of
Hmm.
hurt, the fear of betrayal.
Mm.
Um, so I would really tread lightly when it comes to French, and it takes me a long, long time to even put you in the friend category. Now we can be cool acquaintances,
Right.
that's my girl, but I'm very guarded when it comes to that because I have seen so many toxic female
Really?
friendships.
Yeah, that's interesting that you would say because yeah, again, mine I never even thought about my female friend relationships. I was never afraid of those. I didn't have any red flags or feelings about the friendships. So
Mm,
I was open to befriending and being friend. However, I would say this though, I didn't feel like I related to a lot of people to the point where
mm,
we became close friends. So now I have a
yeah,
very close circle because we really, really relate to each other. But I didn't have any fear of those kind of friendships. It was strictly in a romantic relationship. I
mm,
didn't want any parts of it. I'm not sad about that, but
yeah,
it's like if you knew then what you know now, because that
right,
set my life on a course that I have to still handle the consequences of my behaviors in my 20s.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the underlying issue too, or I'll say my underlying issue
Mhm.
is also trust. And also I have to point out that another reason why I became so guarded when it came to friendships is because
Mhm.
I had heard my whole life that my father's best friend killed him.
Okay. Okay. So you had, because I was going to ask you when you say trust, because when you say the word trust, I never thought about trust in that way. Like when you say trust, or when you said I guess you just felt like, yeah, they would betray you, just
Yeah.
anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had so it's abandonment on top of
Mm,
trust.
trust.
And then trying to process his best friend killed him, you know,
Ah,
so
that's powerful because you're like, wait a minute, if someone's your friend, your best friend,
right,
how on earth can they kill you?
right,
Right.
right.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
know, Yvonne, it's so interesting how the childhood or the early, what we see early on, really, and it's not just us, right? It's most people have have a story or a feeling or something that happened, and it is running their adult life. And I'm glad
yeah,
that we're having this conversation, because what'll happen is people will listen and say, oh my gosh, I can relate to that. Or they
mm,
didn't even know this is happening to them because they've never been able to face it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I
Mhm.
think that's the thing about life. In order to evolve, in order to
Correct.
grow, we have to look at the things that keeping us stagnant in certain parts of our life, and love is a major part of our life.
Major.
It affects everything.
Everything. Yeah. I think
Um,
now that I'm in love fully with my full self,
mhm.
I think, wow, I've been missing a part of my nature,
Yeah,
suppressing
yeah,
who I was created to be. I couldn't live a full life if I wasn't able to face my past. I mean, I
mhm,
didn't set out to face it because I didn't know there was a problem.
right,
It's like when you don't know there's a problem, then you don't know you're trying to fix something. I didn't
yeah,
know that I was behaving in a way that wasn't in congruence with my nature. I didn't know.
yeah,
Yeah, I didn't
yeah.
know
'Cause you're looking at it
until
like, this is me, this is
this
part
is
of my
me.
character, this
Yeah,
is
this
part
is
of
me.
who I am, accept
Correct.
who I am, yeah.
Yeah, this is me, and this is who I am, and this is
Yeah,
how I'm gonna be, and there you are. And a person came into my life, which is how love is just so transformational. But
yeah,
my now fiance, will be husband, his love and his beingness helped to expand me and help me to heal.
mm, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I wanna get into that,
Yeah.
but first,
Mhm.
in regards to running from love,
Mhm.
we're also running from intimacy, vulnerability. How was your perception of that?
So I was, and I think you said the word vulnerability.
Yeah,
I just wasn't willing. I was just a closed person. That's all there
mhm,
was to it. I was just a closed person. I was set on how I was going to maneuver through life, which was career focused.
yeah,
And I wasn't going to make any connections with anybody. And vulnerability wasn't even a word for me. It
yeah,
wasn't even a it wasn't even a concept. I was just forward march. This is who I am. This is how I'm going to be. I even thought that it doesn't make me laugh, but I just think, oh my goodness. I
yeah,
thought, okay, I'm a Black woman, and I know so many Black women that have raised children on their own.
yeah,
And so I thought, okay, I'll do that. I will have a child. I need obviously a person to a mate with, but I didn't think, oh, I'll have a relationship. I'll just be a single mom. I will have my career. I will just be on my own, and that's how I'll move through life. So I just didn't even, I'm vulnerable, none of that. I was just on a path of my own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And the same for me. I was afraid to get too close to people in general.
You know,
So
I
I
like what you
kept
said. You were afraid. I don't even know. I got so used to it that I didn't even know that I was afraid anymore. I got so
yeah.
used to my behavior that it was just me.
Mm.
I didn't even know I was afraid.
Yeah.
Only now do I know.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. I
Mhm.
looking back, I couldn't put a word on it. I didn't know the word vulnerability. Um,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't know intimacy or what that meant,
correct. Yeah,
because my perspective of intimacy was sex.
yeah.
So I did
Yes, exactly. I
so
didn't
I
even
didn't
know.
yeah,
Yeah, and I thought, yeah, I had no idea what intimacy was like from a soul to soul level when you're
yeah,
really connecting with somebody. This is the thing. Consciously, I didn't know that. But deep down in my spirit and my
yeah,
soul, I did know that.
yeah, yeah.
I did know that, but I didn't know
Understand.
that. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it. I didn't know what I was running from. I didn't know why I was afraid. I couldn't connect the dots. I just
Correct.
did. I just was, and as far as my vulnerability and intimacy, I couldn't even it affected not just the relationships around me, it
Mhm.
also affected my relationship with myself, um,
Interesting.
and being vulnerable in regards to I wasn't quick to cry about things that's going on. It was like I had this hardness about me.
Oh,
And like you said, I didn't know I was afraid, but I wouldn't tap into that part of myself. Oh, but when I did, it was
uh,
the floodgates were open.
oh, how
But
old were you, if I may ask, when you started to peel back the layers?
I would say I started when I had my first son, 19.
Oh, so you started
Um,
early.
yeah, I
Okay.
started early. I stopped drinking, I stopped partying, I started being a little more
Okay.
conscious about the direction I was going in because now I have this life, and he was teaching me love.
Okay.
He
Wow.
began to teach me without saying a word. I started to learn love and vulnerability and all these things. And I wanted that part of myself to
Mhm.
change. But it's still like turning a boat took forever
Okay,
for
but you became aware of it
I became
early.
aware of it early
Ah,
because
I did
I
not.
didn't want my son I have 2 sons now, but, I didn't want my oldest son to have a negative experience of love.
Wow. Yeah.
And
I
so I became very, very intentional about making sure I tell him I love him every day, making sure that, you
uh,
know yeah, I wanted to do things differently than what was done with me.
I didn't start to get my discovery or my epiphanies until my 40s. Yeah, I marched through life all the way up through my 40s, just still that holding on to that same way of being, which I really think I applaud you, and it's wonderful that you started to uncover it early, though it took a while to peel back the layers. Like you said, it's like turning of the Titanic, but
Yeah.
at least you knew. I did not.
Mm.
I did not.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
and I yeah, it was because of this relationship that I'm in, but it was bless his heart, it's been going on for 29 years. And
Yeah.
talk about patience and love.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
Hmm.
If you wanna talk about it, talk about it.
Yeah, so I'll briefly say, so when I was 19 in college doing all the things that I was
Mhm.
doing, I met a young man in college, and he was just so different from everyone else.
Yeah.
And I'll use this word. He was I would say, religious, and that was not my way of being at all. And we just developed a real honest friendship. And I saw him, unfortunately, now that I think about it, as someone that was beyond me, that he was such a wonderful man that I thought he would never be with someone like me, whatever that meant,
Mm.
like me. And we just developed a friendship, and he always spoke positivity, guidance into me from that time we met, and we became really close friends, so close as a friend. Remember, I didn't have a problem with a friend.
Right.
So because he was a friend and we never had sexual relations, because I didn't see him as a potential mate. I just saw him as a friend. I can be honest with a friend. I
Yeah.
can be open with a friend. And I didn't have the walls up, because in my mind, he was not ever going to be someone that I would be with, because he was a wonderful man. But again, I didn't think enough about who I was at that time to think that he would be with someone like me.
Mm.
So I was very open, and he became almost like he was just a confidant. I would tell him things, and just real, talk about vulnerable, talk about intimacy. It was building, but I didn't know, because I didn't feel judged by him. I
Yeah.
felt like I could just really be honest.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then one day, 16 years later into our friendship, then he told me he loved me. And when he said it, I was just shook, because I thought, what do you, in my mind, I'm thinking, what do you mean? Like, and I
Yeah.
knew what he meant. I knew he meant differently from this friendship.
Yeah.
And I knew that over that time I had fallen in love with him too, but I would never admit that. I would never
Yeah.
bring that to the forefront. And he gave me permission from that moment to feel,
Mm.
but for the fact that I was in a relationship with my child's father
Yeah.
when that all came about. So I couldn't, I still couldn't fully express, because here I am. Now I've uncovered what love is to me, but I cannot be with this person,
Yeah.
because I have a daughter, I have a whole life that I made with someone else under, I don't want to say false pretenses, but I I certainly was not in love, but I had a life with
You
someone
were
else.
playing the role. You
I
were
was
playing.
playing, yes, ma'am. I was playing the role, and now I'm able to say it, and that just was, I was playing the role, and so I had a problem, because I had the role that I was playing and the whole life that went with that. I
Yeah.
had a whole entire being based on the role and the life. And then I had something very, very significant on another side, is this, there where I'm growing and learning and being vulnerable, and it can't happen
Yeah.
because of time and circumstances. And this is where the love started to grow, because what he said to me was, I'm going to not let you go, but now is not the time for us. And so I love you. He told me, I love you. I want you to be happy. We will maintain our friendship, but, go back into what you have to go back into, and finish what you need to finish.
Yeah.
And so 8 years went past, and
Wow.
I have 8 years went past, and I had 8 years to stir and notice that I was truly, truly not living in alignment. And that, bless his heart, the man that I will marry still held that space for me.
Mm.
So 8 years later, and I'm saying, just like this, I called him up and I said, I'm ready. And I didn't know if I would be received. So that's a part of
Right.
vulnerability, because
Right.
I'm saying, I'm putting it all out here. I'm going for it. I'm scared as I don't know what, but I want to pursue this. I want to Now, marriage, I wasn't. I didn't. Then let's not talk about that yet. But I just.
Yeah.
Yeah. That actually, that's a whole nother situation. But and so we've been together 5.5 years. So we met 29 years ago. We were
Mm,
friends for 16 years. So for 16 years, we were legitimately friends where I was able to share with him without fear. So I developed a trust because I didn't have that problem with a friend.
yeah.
And then 16 years into the friendship, it turned, and then it took another 8 years for me to find my way to him without baggage, so to speak. And then it took another 5.5 years for me to then get over the fear, because now I had a fear of love, and then I had a fear of marriage. Because in my mind, if you're married, they own you, they control you.
Yeah.
I just had a whole another
Yeah.
thing about marriage, and that whenever he would speak about marriage, I would get nauseous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what was it about him that made you more vulnerable when it came to love? What was it that he taught you about
Mm,
love that made it different from everyone else that you had ever dated? And even what was it
yeah.
about him that pushed past your perception, this negative
Oh,
perception you had of love?
wow. If wow, tears may run down my face, but so I said to you that he is religious, and so that
Mhm.
was not something that I wanted to partake in. And I also felt that religion was judgmental. That's what I held in my
Mhm. Mm,
mind. And so here he is religious, but he was not judgmental. That
mm.
all of the things that he used to see. Now, he was my neighbor in college, so he would see different men coming in and out of my apartment.
Yeah.
He saw that. And the fact that he loved me through it, didn't judge me. I and again, in that me saying, "Oh, he's religious," I'm thinking, well, wow, that you could see the good in me, you can see my heart. Like that's what it was. It's like
Yeah.
he saw my heart.
Yeah.
And so that gentleness, that non-judgmental behavior, and he would just love me through all the things that I would do, and he would affirm me and he would lift me up. And it wasn't anything sexual. And that's
Yeah.
what and it was over time, Yvonne. It was
Yeah.
over a it wasn't like you were saying about turning the boat. So yeah, it was a boat turning moment for me,
Yeah.
because I looked up years and years later and I said, wow, he's still here, consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
consistent and being a protector
Yeah.
of my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say, my husband, we've been together, it'll be 25 years, the end of August, the end of this month.
Mm,
And
beautiful.
but it took me 15 years to marry him. Now he asked within a year of us dating,
Wow.
but
Wow.
I kept putting it off and saying, okay, we can maybe next year, maybe next year. But he knew I was running. I kept my gym shoes by the front door.
I heard that. Exactly.
So in every sign of an issue,
Hmm.
every argument, every disagreement, every issue that we had to go through,
Hmm.
I was packing his bags,
But was
because
he ever
I was
trying to
afraid.
leave? Was he
No.
was he all see, that's what it is. I think, Yvonne, for us, the runners, we needed someone that was not running, and someone that would pull us back in, because we're
Yeah.
trying to run and
Yeah,
they're like,
and
I'm not
constantly
gonna.
pushing them and constantly pushing
Yes.
them away. Like, every
Yes.
sign, it was like, because in the back of my mind, he's
Mm-hmm.
going to leave me.
Yeah.
And also, I looked at every other reason why he stayed besides the fact that he loved me.
Yeah.
So I had one of the things that I had to work on was the love I had for myself because it was hard for me to accept his love because I was struggling to love me. So I was constantly mixed up with the trust issue, mixed up with fear of betrayal. Every
Okay.
fear, and my negative toxic introduction to love
Mm-hmm.
affected how I loved him and how I loved myself, but it didn't affect how I love my children.
Children.
It
Okay.
did not affect how I love my children because I didn't want them to feel any of that. And I was very intentional about giving them the love that I wish I had.
I think it's a blessing. You and I, in particular, that I'm talking about, but those that are listening may be able to relate to this, that we had people in our lives, placed in our lives, that didn't go in the
Yeah,
darkest, in our behaviors and our all of the things. Somehow we had a match or mates that didn't leave us, that showed us what love truly is. Because
yeah,
love is patient, right? Love is
yeah,
kind. Love is all of these things. And for us as runners, having our gym shoes right by the door,
yeah,
they didn't let us go or not go very far.
yeah. Maybe 2 years into the relationship, we split up for like a year. And I realized that I do love because we started out as friends too.
Hmm.
And I think that friendship was the bond that
Yes.
and he embraced my flaws.
Yes. Oh my
And
God.
yeah,
Woo! That's it, Yvonne. When you have
yeah,
somebody that truly embraces your flaws and they see the flaws and they're like, but I love you still.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
had to get past my perception of a marriage or a relationship
Hmm.
because I had and really focus on my friendship with him. We lived together and had, at this point we have a kid together
Uh-huh.
and and having to do life and seeing him as a father and seeing
Yeah.
how his the certain things about him that I just absolutely fell in love with,
Yes.
even because he's flawed too. Loving him through his flaws and embracing each other during the really tough times because we had a child well have a son that have Down syndrome. So
Hmm.
having to go to all the ups and downs with that and dealing with that's a whole nother level of love,
And
um,
intimacy.
and intimacy
Yeah.
and with each other and with embracing the flaws of our son, you know?
Ah,
So that level of love also helped me love me better
got
and
it.
love my own flaws better. So I really feel like God was giving me different
Yes.
introducing me
Absolutely.
to different things because my distrust, my fears and everything, and my fear of being vulnerable affected
Hmm.
my connection with
Hmm.
God,
Yes. Absolutely. Yes,
you
ma'am.
know, and even that relationship with God had to bloom because just like in any relationship, I had to get to know him. I had to understand him. I had to forgive him for
Yes.
things that I felt like he should have protected me from. Love is just not one blanket thing. It's so many different layers of love. And I eventually, because a lot of people probably thought because we were together for 15 years and not
Mhm.
married, they like, naturally they blame it on the guy.
Yeah, that's what
But
I was gonna say. Between you and I, like we are the ones running, and the men are the
yeah,
ones wanting to be married, and that's not what people usually see or think. We
yeah,
were the ones
yeah,
that
like what took him so long? No, it was me.
same. It
So
was me.
I had to sit down and face myself when it came to marriage. And
Mhm.
I felt like, okay, am I wrong? Which I was, for for the delay for something he wanted.
Uh,
He wanted to be married. He wanted, but I didn't wanna do it just because this is what he wanted. I wanted to do it when
right.
I felt like I was ready.
And that
And yeah.
I think so for me, I'm ready now because I'm actually getting married next week, as I've said that. But when we first talked about it, for me, I would get nauseous. It was upsetting to me. And I remember him saying to me, which really stuck with me, leave that which you doubt for what you don't doubt. So if you're something in your spirit, your mind, and you're not comfortable with it and you're doubting it, go for what is true to you at this time, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Just leave that doubt behind and don't do that if you can't figure out until you figure it out. And he
Yeah.
was patient, and obviously your husband was patient with you as well.
Yeah.
For me to, but yeah, it's personal development and digging into the oneself is quite the journey. And I think because it can be so painful, because you have to open up, you have to be vulnerable in order to get to the other side. People don't
Yeah.
want to do that work,
Yeah.
but
And I
it's
think
beautiful to be
yeah.
loved, to
Yeah.
love and be loved.
Yes, and I strongly believe now that God is love and love is God, you
Yeah.
know? And it took me to embrace love in general,
Mm,
to even realize the love of God and the importance of love in this life. Everything
is
revolves
around
around love.
it does
Everything.
everything,
And
everything.
it's something that in our healing journey,
Yeah.
whatever it is we're healing from,
Hmm.
to reacquaint ourselves with love. So I wanted to ask,
Hmm.
now that you're on the other side of it, how has your perception of love changed?
It's changed in that I know, as you said, love is everything, and that you cannot be your highest and best self without it. And before, I thought I could just bulldoze through life,
Yeah.
career focused. I wasn't God focused. I was me focused. And so love has made me more selfless. I still, of course, take care of myself, but I have changed how I move through the world.
Mm,
And because love is in me, I'm on me, in me, I'm better as a person. That's the thing. Love makes you better as a person. It makes, for me, I'm nicer, I'm kinder, I
yeah.
am more understanding.
Mhm.
Because love is will transform you.
Yeah.
And now that I know what it is, what it feels like, it's like, oh my goodness, everyone needs to heal.
Yeah.
We all need to heal
Yeah.
so we can get to this place.
Yeah. It's
And
so
I
beautiful.
do, it
Yeah.
is, and I do pray for those that are willing, that are decent human beings in their spirit, that they find someone that matches who they are
Yeah.
at a core level. Because when you have that match for your soul and your spirit, it's transformational. That you feel like you can conquer and weather all the storms because you have this love.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just love for the physical person too. It's God's love. My fiance brought a spiritual side to my life that I didn't have.
Mm.
He brought the word to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love is
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
spiritual.
It
Um,
is.
and it does make you more understanding. Like, even when we get in disagreements now, I don't
Mhm.
look at it like I gotta be right, or, I gotta prove him
Yeah.
wrong or nothing like that. It's more like I wanna understand what this is. I wanna understand so we
Yes.
can get to the other side of this. Now, granted, I am stubborn.
I'm
I
not.
am
I'm not
stubborn.
stubborn. I
Um,
learned that.
but I'm evolving. I'm getting better. Even with that, I'm getting better. And one of the things that I shared it in season 1, but I wanna share now that
Mhm.
one day my husband was asleep, and I'm not sure what happened. I was over flooded with emotions, and I looked at him,
Mhm.
and it I think I had lost a friend or something like that at that time, and so I was in grief for a friend,
Mhm.
but I looked at my husband and I said, "I don't want," 'cause up until that point, I was, very petty. So so and had all these walls up, and something he said too, he said, "It's been X amount of years," he said, "How long are you gonna have this wall up?"
Uh-huh.
And but back to when he was asleep. So he was asleep and I looked at him and I got really emotional because I said, "I don't want, since we've chosen to be
Mhm.
together, it will hurt me more if he passed
Mm.
or I passed and
Mhm.
not fully connected and experienced love." That would break my heart more because I'm walking around with all these walls up and being
Mhm.
stubborn and all these things, and I'm not truly loving him the way he needs to be loved, and allowing him to fully love me. And I was like, I wouldn't want this life to pass
Uh-huh.
without us experiencing love with each other. And I'm like, if I'm not willing to give that to him,
Mhm.
I need to make a decision.
Wow.
I don't want to hold this space in his
Mhm.
life. And I'm withholding what this space is supposed to be.
To be. Yeah. That's when you made me laugh because when you said about being petty and having the walls up, I think about, yeah, I had I had the walls, but when I got into the relationship, I just softened.
Mm,
And I realized that I'm soft, I'm sensitive, I'm
yeah,
sweet, but I didn't that's not who I used to be, but in this
yeah,
relationship I've always showed up that way
yeah,
because he's that way. He's he's very, I mean, manly, but always been very, it's like he gave me permission to be all of the things because he was all of those things first.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He was all of those things
Well,
first, but it made me laugh because I could understand, and I but I'm he and I don't we don't not that we don't disagree, we don't argue because we just don't. It's something about
yeah.
the way he shows up to me.
He
It's
has
like
an emotional maturity.
man,
Yeah,
Yvonne. It's beyond me.
yeah,
It's beyond me.
yeah,
And so I've learned so much from, and he's always been very mature as a person I mean, even when we were younger, but yeah, he's a very emotionally mature. And if I ever have a problem or a gripe, he's like really a good listener and he's just
yeah,
like helping me work through it. I'm just like, wow.
yeah,
Yeah, such a blessing. Such a blessing. So I can't wait to say I do.
yeah,
However, this is funny. So because of my fears and vulnerable all of the things when it comes to marriage, we're having a small ceremony
yeah,
because I'm thinking, what if I run? I won't, but I just, can have so many eyeballs on me. But as the days get closer, I'm just really, really excited to, with all of my soul, tell this man that I am, ready to be his wife.
yeah.
Yay.
I love that. I'm love that for you. I love it for him. I think that is awesome. Like,
I really thank you for allowing me to talk about love and the healing and all of the things because as I said, most of the time I'm talking about fruits, vegetable, and vitamin D. And
yeah,
though I love talking about that,
I'm really looking forward to our conversation about nutrition.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
yeah, but I really wanted to have this conversation because, like I said earlier, no matter what journey you're on, it's relevant. It's it's
yes.
a process. Love affects and your approach to love, your
Mhm,
willingness to be loved. It impacts everything that you're doing in life, everything that you want to accomplish in life because life
mhm.
is about love.
It
And
is.
everything evolves around love,
Yeah,
perception of it and your ability to receive it.
yes.
And I'm glad that we both have mates that were willing to stick it out.
I
So,
think we stuck it out, but I think the people in our lives
yeah,
were the they helped us stick it out when we didn't know any better. I think also that God gives us all gifts.
yeah,
Now, some things that happen in our lives, we may not see it as a gift.
yeah,
And if we don't know to look for the gift or the lesson or the blessing in a thing, then we may miss it. But
yeah,
there's always a gift, even in in the worst things. And a lot of times, those things that happen are designed to some way or another bring us closer to who we truly are meant to be,
yeah, yeah,
and showing us who we are through the challenge. Because when there's a challenge, you have to rise up, and and then we have people in our lives that help us do that, and that is such a blessing.
it
Such a
is.
blessing.
It
Yeah,
is. And it changes everything.
it does.
What is the greatest lesson you learned about love?
Uh, that
Mm.
God is love, and all of us deserve it. It's available, but in so many cases, you got to do the work.
Yeah.
Because people ask me, Vaughn, like, what's the secret? Like, well, the secret was I had to do some work, internal work,
Yeah.
show up as who I was. And I also believe that there's a match. There's someone for everyone out there,
Yeah.
but you got to do the work.
Yeah. And the greatest work that you have to do but your
Mhm.
relationship you have with yourself
Yeah.
is critical because no matter how much someone shows you love,
Hmm.
until you realize that you're worthy of it.
Yes, worthy. Oh my gosh. I know this can't go into a whole nother conversation, but I would have told you that I had high self-esteem, and I really believe that. I didn't feel like I had low
Mhm.
self-esteem, but somewhere in me, I felt I was not worthy of this man. And I do now understand it, but
Mm.
early on, I thought he's too good for me. And what does that mean? That means that I don't think I'm good enough.
Yeah.
And that somewhere in there, there's some low self-esteem.
Yeah.
Because why did I think that?
Yeah. And I think too, a lot of it, well, I'll say for me, a lot of my worth stemmed from my introduction to love, my
Hmm.
stuff that I had been through. And you end up having this low self-esteem based on other people's perception of what they feel you're worth. Somehow, well, for me, I know where mine come from. Like mine come from struggling with reading and the embarrassment I had growing up, the
Mm,
abuse, the sexual abuse, the mental abuse, the emotional abuse that I endured as a child made me believe that I was unworthy of anything else.
got it.
So as an adult, I had to recondition myself and
So,
really will myself in and say, okay, why do you feel this way? Where did that come from? And not just looking at it, but
mhm.
also, okay, now you need to change your perception of it because I really believe our perceptions is what
Yeah,
impact how we move in
you
life, the
absolutely.
decisions we make. Yeah.
Yeah, what how we give meaning to something.
Right.
I know you and I mean, I know our time is coming to an end and
Feel
there's so
free.
many things to say, but I was just thinking, I wasn't abused. I never had a heartbreak. None of that because I wasn't in it with anybody.
Yeah.
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 So
I
I
think I
just
was breaking my own heart.
heart. Yeah.
Yeah, I was breaking my own heart because I would, as fast as I was trying to run, I was still falling, you know,
Mm.
and I was still caring more than I admitted that I was, and would develop this hardness and toughness, and I would approach relationships like a male.
Yeah, I would approach it like a male
Yeah,
in a sense, but and I just felt like I didn't need anybody.
yeah,
I felt like they were all useless and I didn't need them other than for intercourse, I suppose. And
yeah,
there was no connection. So if they walked out of my life, I was okay with that. Um, and I didn't have you come and you go. That was that was it. That was it. I think that yeah, that was it. I didn't have any I didn't even know I was hardened. I didn't
mm,
even know that.
yeah,
I really didn't know. I didn't know I was hardened until I softened. Now
right,
I'm like,
yeah,
"Oh,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and just looking back like, wow, I was kinda mean. I got
Mhm.
I'm glad I got to a place for my own soul where I did soften. I softened up so much, and even with friendships, I'm different. I mean, I'm still cautious, and I'm not quick to call people a friend. Um,
Mm.
but and that's a whole nother story. But even in the Bible, it says to be cautious and to guard your
Mhm.
heart.
Yes, guard your heart. I um I was in a situation for 2 years with someone and I just walked away like no just I was done and that was it and I didn't seem to care what they felt about it. So that's how I was. I was very like they were just disposable. Like I
Yeah,
was not good.
yeah,
I was not good. Like as if other people didn't have feelings. Like
yeah,
that's how I behaved.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm so glad, you got to a place of being softened
Yes. Oh my
and
gosh,
being
I'm so
more
different now.
open and receptive, and for your own self to have that experience and to not leave this world in that dark. I'll say
Yeah.
for me, I was in a dark place, and that would have been more unfortunate than to be more open and to love, and I've learned that it's not about trusting the other
This
person, it's about trusting God.
absolutely.
So, what message of hope would you like to leave with us?
What message of hope? Every day is a new day. And you, person, me, you, all of us, we can decide that we're going to do things differently. We can decide. Every day is a new one. As long as you're breathing, as long as you wake up and you have the opportunity to do something different, you can heal, you can love, you can
Yeah,
decide.
yeah. That's
So,
a great message.
yeah.
How can people get in touch with you?
I am on Instagram at Nessie Nutri. N is in Nancy, ESSYNUTRI. So on Instagram at Nessie Nutri. So, and then my website is necessaryvitamind.com. Necessaryvitamind.com. Or if you Google Necessary Nutrition, it'll lead you to me some way or another. That's the name of my company, Necessary Nutrition. And so,
Mhm.
yes, I am a nutritionist, and what we do is help people use food and nutrition to heal their bodies. And this is the first time that people get to meet me in a different capacity. But
Mhm.
that's how you find me on universe of the web is through necessaryvitamind.com.
Robin Allen, congratulations on
Thank
everything.
you.
Congratulations on your wedding, on love,
Yes.
and congratulations on your business,
Yes, thank you.
and all the best on that. But this is not goodbye because we'll talk again soon. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being open and vulnerable to talk about this amazing thing called love.
You're welcome. And thank you for being you and creating the space and being vulnerable as well. You're inspiring, and your journey and your story is absolutely inspiring. And so we will connect again soon. So I look forward
Yeah.
to our next conversation.
Yeah. Thank you. And to the listeners, thank you for taking time out of your day to tune in. I hope that you're able to get something from this episode and each and every episode. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to like, comment, and share. We would love to hear from you. You owe it to yourself to heal and grow and be loved and to love. Love is your birthright. Until next time, be blessed.
Thank you for tuning in to Let's Talk About Healing with Yvonne Pierre. We hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share.